Linear functions are of the form ax plus by equals c. This graph has the slope greater than 0 and c equals to 0. This graph has b equals to 0, and this graph has slope less than 0 and y-intercept greater than 0. Quadratic functions are of the form y equals ax squared plus bx plus c, where a is not equal to 0. This first graph has one intersection point with the x-axis, a is greater than 0, b equals 0, c equals 0. This graph has two intersection points, a is less than 0, c is greater than 0. And this graph has zero intersection points, a is greater than 0 and c is greater than 0. Polynomial functions are summation of variables with varying degrees multiplied by coefficient. This example, n equals 4. There are 4 different intersection points, a is greater than 0. This one, n is also 4. There are 2 different intersection points, and a is less than 0. This is a linear graph. It is also an example of polynomial function. Rational functions are the ratio of two polynomial functions where the denominator is non-zero. This is a graph of tangent of x, which is sine of x over cosine of x. It has vertical and horizontal asymptotes. This one has a vertical asymptote and a slant asymptote. This one has a vertical asymptote and horizontal asymptote, but note that the vertical asymptote is not at x equals 0, but shifted to the right. Power functions consist of one term y equals a times x to the b. A is greater than 0 and b is even because it is symmetric. It's a quadratic function. A is less than 0 because it shows up in the second and fourth quadrant. B is less than 0 and odd because there's rotational symmetry about origin and origin is not crossed. A is greater than 0 because it shows up in the first and third quadrant, and b is odd because there's rotational symmetry about the origin. Exponential functions are of the form y equals a times b to the x minus h plus k, where b is greater than 0 and not equal to 1. A is greater than 0 and k equals 0 because there's a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0. A is greater than 0 and k is greater than 0 because horizontal asymptote is y is greater than 0. It's raised to the power of negative x because it is flipped over the y-axis. A is less than 0 because it's flipped over the x-axis. H is greater than 0 because it's shifted to the right, and k equals 0. Logarithmic functions are of the form y equals a log of x minus h base b plus k. A is greater than 0, h equals to 0. It's flipped over the x-axis, so a is less than 0, h equals to 0. And a is greater than 0, h is less than 0, it is flipped over the y-axis and shifted to the right. It's log of negative x minus h.